Hello everyone, we'll be going over our fourth week of Inventor. We have more things about drawing than the actual modeling. So what I've done is, since we've done modeling for the past 3 weeks, I've already made a component here. I've named it week 4. So what we're just going to do is we're going to open week 4. Again, this is not one of the components on your assignment. This is just something I made up. This is actually the print head carrier for my 3D printer. I'm designing a new one. So one of the things we're going to be going over today is the datum planes, axes, and the center point. So if you go over here on the left hand to the model tree, you find origin. If you click the plus button, we have all of our planes and axes and center point. So what we're going to do is we're going to make them visible. And what we can do, instead of making dimensions to a certain place, we can actually use these and dimension to these instead. So right now I'm just going to make those invisible. We'll leave them visible, it's fine. But we'll go back to my sketch 1 here. And as you can see, I've actually dimensioned to one of the datum axes here. So what happened is the line I drew over top of this axis got fixed vertically, and since it was sharing the same line, it was fixed so it only could extend. And then it also started here at the origin, so this point is fixed now and it can only extend vertically. So that is another way we can use them. You can also use the datum planes to make an offset plane or do some other stuff. That is more in the 3D modeling section. Here we have these planes. We won't be going over these planes in this week's lesson, but they are there to use. So what we're going to go over next is the effect that modifying the parent and child relationship has. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this first sketch, and we're actually going to take this 3-inch dimension. Maybe I want to make it 4 inches instead. Hit that, and we see this changes. We're going to change this a little bit to be 1 inch. And then we're going to also change, actually we'll change that to be 2 inches. That's too much. 1.5 looks fine. So now we're going to hit finish sketch. Now that we changed that, this entire drawing should modify. Now you'll notice one of the errors that happened is these holes. Now what I'm going to do is it didn't produce an error over here on the left. So it just happens to be these holes happen to be in a place that I don't want them anymore. So if we hover over this one of our extrusions, here we have the hole tool we used. If we see that, that's where it is. So we can go to the sketch, double click on sketch, and now we can go here and edit it. Now one thing I did before was I dimensioned in between. I still need to keep that because in between the rods will always stay the same. But this is not necessarily the optimal place to hold the rods. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to change one of these dimensions. In this case, we're actually going to get rid of this one and the one down here and dimension to the ends. Okay? Since for this lesson and example, the actual machine does not matter for us. So we're actually going to keep this the same. We're going to change this just to a solid 1 inch, make it a little easier. And since this interfered, we're going to change this to 0.5. And now we hit finish sketch. And it has been updated accordingly. So this is now what we want it to look like. So this is all good to go. Now, one of the other things we can do is if we right click on a feature, we can also suppress it. So if we don't want to look at it for now and consider it, we can suppress it. So in this case, I'm going to suppress the holes. If I suppress that feature, that is now gone. We're going to hit accept here. And now we have issues with our sketch. Now, I typically don't suppress features while doing part drawings, but according to the lesson, you will need to use the suppress feature. But in this case, it popped up with 2 errors saying that I have issues with that being suppressed because these are also dependent upon the holes, but not entirely. So we're just going to unsuppress, let it reload, and now we have it fully together. So I'm going to go back through. I'm going to get rid of all of these. I'm just going to make them invisible. And now we have our finished part. So we're just going to go ahead and hit the save button here. We're going to go back to the home, and now we're going to start with the drawing tools. So this is not the sketching tools, but we're actually going to make a drawing. So we're going to hit the drawing thing right there, and now it brings up this. So what we're going to do is we go over here on the top, we hit base, and this brings up another window. So this is the initial drawing view. Now, since I already have the part file open, it automatically selects that one, but if I wanted to do a different one, I could hit the little arrow there and say I could select that one, and now that different part pops up. But we're going to stick with the original. So we're going to stick with a one-to-one view in this case, and you will see why in a little bit. But now once you go out of that window, you see that I get a couple boxes as I move around. So if I click over here, this gives me a side view. If I click above it, it gives me a top view. And then if I go out here at an angle, it gives me an isometric view. Okay, we're going to click OK. And then now I have these three views. But if you look, it's one-to-one scale because the part is only 4 inches long, so it's not very big. But the page is massive. So if it's one-to-one, this is 4 actual inches. But since this page is massive, we can change that. If we go over to the left here, we have again our model tree, but it looks a little different. We're going to see a sheet, and if we minimize it, we have this sheet. But we'll right-click on it and create and hit Edit Sheet. And now you see we can name it, so I'll just name this one Sheet 1. And then we have size. So size goes according to paper size. Now, if we go to A, we'll see it's 8.5 by 11. That is regular printer paper. If we go to B, we have 11 by 17, which is a larger set of paper. C, again, is 17 by 22. We go to D, 22 by 34, and then we can go on and on and on. But we'll stick with regular paper size because that's what we're going to be printing with, and we're going to hit OK. Now you see the paper is now the proper size, but all my drawings are not on the paper. So what we're going to do is we're just going to click and drag them. We're going to see if we hover over, we get that red line. We can drag it down and drag it over. But now you see these ones came along with it. So if I move the main drawing, or the main view, the front view, it drags the other ones with it and keeps them in line. But you'll notice the isometric view does not do the same. It's way off over here. So we can just drag that separately over. Okay. Now we have our part. And this is our front, our top, and our side views. So instead of drawing them by hand, we don't have to do that anymore. That is just, it's much easier to do it this way. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say we didn't initially add this view. So we're just going to get rid of that one. We're going to get rid of all of them entirely. And we're going to get rid of that one as well. So if we wanted to, and we did the same idea, but we only did the top two, or the front and the top view, we can add other views if we forgot them. So if I can take this projected view, the projected view button, click the main view I wanted, so the front view, and then make that side view and make that isometric. Right click and hit create. Now we have it back to being original. But notice we can also have projected views that aren't the top and the side. We can have the bottom view. We could have the side view. We could have different isometric views according to the drawing. So we have a lot more flexibility with what we can draw because we can just orient it on the page as such. But we'll stick with this whole front, top, and side view with the isometric for now. One of the nice things is instead of dimensioning everything by hand, we can go over here to annotate and click Retrieve Model Annotations. So what it's going to ask me to do now is select a view. So I'm going to select the front view, click OK, and now it brought in all those dimensions that we made in the part file. But you'll notice it's extremely messy because it's dimensions for everything on here. Now, while this is a decently complicated part, not incredibly, but more complicated than your standard part, we will have a lot of dimensions either way. But this is not okay for dimensions. This is way too cluttered, okay? So what we're just going to do is we're going to Control Z and get rid of those. We're just going to undo. And we can actually add dimensions by hand. So if we go up under the annotate, we go to dimension. We can dimension from here to here. That's 4 inches like we said. If I dimension from this side to this side, again, that is that dimension that I set. But now when I drew this, it was 0.625, 5/8 of an inch. But now it's telling me it's 0.63. That is just a rounding little bit there. So we can actually go in and change the precision of how many decimals we have, but we're not going to be doing that today. That is not of importance to us. But notice that this dimension is still actually 0.625. We just rounded to a certain amount of digits. Okay? Now, one of the other things we can do is we can add center lines. As you'll notice, the hidden lines are already here. We don't have to worry as much about that. We do have to add our center lines though. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some center marks here. If you look in the center of the screen, up in the ribbon, we have our center mark tool. And we can add those on any circles. So in all of these circles, they're going to get a center mark. And there is no way to automatically take all circles and add a center mark. You have to select them individually, unfortunately. But we also have centered pattern, which as you can see, if you look at your picture here, we have that. We won't be using that today. But then we also have our center line. But we also have something called a center line bisector. So what a center line bisector does is what we'll do, since there is symmetry down this part, we're going to go from this point to this point. That's not the way I wanted it. My bad. So there's symmetry across this if we were to split it horizontal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one line over here, the other line on the opposite side, and it makes a center line. But the problem is it doesn't go all the way through the part because the line that I selected was not all the way. The line I selected was here, which only goes partially way through the side. So after doing that, you can just take the ends of the center line and you can just extend them. Same things with the center marks as well. If you click on them, you get the little green dots. You can extend them however you like. So what we're going to do, if you do the center line instead of the center line bisector, we're going to just take that center line, click on one edge, then the other, and it automatically. I hit escape by accident. Click, and then right click and hit create. And now we have that center line in the same method that we did before. Okay, we don't actually need a center line here. I just use that as an example, but we're going to get rid of it. And then what we can also do is we can add center marks to a isometric drawing as well. So if we click the center mark tool, click the circle we want. So all of these would get center marks. Not quite that one. We do one on the surface. On the surface. All of these circles get a center mark. Okay? So now we've added all of our center marks. But you'll notice here that this title block, that's what this is called here, this little, well, it's a rectangle that has all of our drawing information on it. It's called title block. We can actually change the information that's in here because I definitely want to be able to name my part something. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to where it says week 4-1, so it was the part name -1. We're going to right click on it. This is all in the model tree. We're going to hit iProperties, and then we're going to hit summary. So now you'll notice that it says title. I can add my title here. So in this case, it'll be print head carrier. The subject, I can add a subject if I would like to, but you'll notice that there's no subject box here. But we'll add one anyway. We're just going to call it 3D printer. So the author is your name. Please make sure you enter your name in here. The manager in this case, well, it doesn't really matter who you enter for the manager because that, again, that window isn't down here. But in this case, if I were drawing this part, my manager would be my supervisor, so Dean Lewis. If you want to, you can put my name here instead. It won't show up on the drawing, but if you feel like it. And for the company, what we're going to do is we're going to hit Penn State Barron, or type it out. Now, Penn State Barron here will actually appear in the little slot above title. If we want category, we'll just write week 4 lesson. Keywords, we don't really care about that one, or comments. The only thing that's really going to come up is the title, the author, and the company. So we're going to hit apply and close. And now you see the title came up and the name of the company came up. You'll also notice that there is a date here. So that is actually the day I'm making. I made this on a Tuesday, this video. So it is also drawn by my name. This would where a name would go here by checked. QA is quality assurance. MFG would be manufacturing, and then approved would be all these are named. So there's also drawing number here and revision. These two won't get updated, but you'll also notice the scale is down here and the size of the paper. Also how many sheets. So if this was sheet 1 of 2, this would be updated into, well, sheet 1 of 2. Now, I believe I have covered everything for this week's lesson. If you have any questions, please email me. I will be going over explicitly how to turn in the homeworks. We've had quite a few issues with them, and I believe I've addressed them every single time, but I will go over them one more time in this video. So, if the assignment asks for a printout, you will go to File, you go to Print, and you're going to select, instead of a printer, we're going to select Microsoft Print to PDF. Okay? And then we're going to hit OK. It's going to do a little bit of loading, and it's going to bring up a save window. We're just going to call this week 4. Save. And now if I go to my eDesign folder, we have our week 4 PDF, and if I open that up real quick here, this is what it output. Okay? Perfect. We're just going to hit X, and we're going to keep this open. But now, if it wants a screenshot, we're going to use the snipping tool or a similar feature. We're going to click New. We're going to select the entire screen. You don't have to give me the bottom portion here, that bottom ribbon, but if you want to, it's not going to break my heart. So we're just going to collect all the way down to here. We're going to hit Edit. We're going to hit Copy. We're going to go into a Word document, which I have opened up on a different screen. Here it is. And we're going to paste. Okay, that is if it wants a screenshot or a screen capture. And then what you're going to do is once this is, you have all your screenshots completed, we're going to hit File, Print, and then the same idea, Microsoft Print to PDF, and it's the same exact process. We'll hit Print, it'll bring up another window, and we'll save it as a PDF. Okay, we're going to hit Don't Save because I'm closing out of this. I don't want it. And again, Don't Save. And then for this, you're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to hit File, Print, and then Microsoft Print to PDF, and then you'll hit OK. And it'll do the exact same thing. Window will pop up, and you'll save it as a PDF. Now, if you do not submit the Inventor part files with your final submission, you will lose points. If you do not submit the proper screenshots when it's asked for screenshots, or submit the printouts when it asks for printouts, you will lose points. The instructions are very explicit on what needs to be turned in, so please do so. If you have a question of what it wants, please ask. I'm looking at the assignment 11 right now. It's not up. I have a paper copy in front of me. If you look under 1A, it says a hard copy print of the screen capture of the U bracket. Okay? And then there's a little bit after that detailing what the screen capture should show. But a screen capture would use that snipping tool take the picture, put it in a Word document, then save it as a PDF. Okay? Now, if you look at 1C, it says hard copy print of the orthographic projection drawing of the U bracket. So that would be printing directly from Inventor and saving as a PDF. Please, if you have questions about this, ask me, email me, do something. I'll be reviewing this in the lab portion this week as well, in the lecture. Just please ask if you have questions. I've taken away too many points for something as silly as this. Also, you must be using the lesson along in conjunction with the assignment, because it does tell you in the lesson what the screen capture should show. For example, if you look at the lesson at halfway down on the first page of it, it says desired screen capture over a little image of the part. That is exactly what the screen capture should be. Okay? Please, again, if you have questions, ask. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to be, I'm not a mind reader. So unless somebody tells me verbally, through email, chat, whatever, I will not know. If I'm not communicating something properly, again, I'm not a mind reader, so please tell me. Okay? I hope you all have a good week. Stay safe and wash your hands.